you go. Now it's actually not terrible.
Okay. That's not bad.
That's a lot better.
That's a lot better.
I figured that's why it was.
Yeah. Okay. We can deal with that. So I'm going to take that down just a tad more. Okay. All right. Okay. Hello. Welcome to attempt number 2 at Pop Corner episode 18, which is Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I'm Coleman. This is my YouTube channel. That's Draven. He's on this like every week. That's not Draven.
What's up?
That's my friend Brett. He's pretty cool. He's in town. He's not going to be a regular, so fuck him. But
Dang.
Appreciate it.
yeah, you'll get there. You'll work there.
Maybe.
But I'm going to ask you the same question I already asked you once. Newcomer, what's your history with Indiana Jones?
Yeah,
and you can do a quick little recap. I apologize.
Me and Indiana Jones, we go way back.
We go way back.
I grew up watching the Indiana Jones movies. They were a pretty big part of my childhood. So
I mean, I already asked this one time, but did you watch them in theaters?
yeah, I watched all of them in theaters.
Nice. It's good to know.
Yeah.
I must have missed that. My bad.
My apologies. I lied to you last time.
Do it again. Last time he said that he watched the one in theaters, and I told him who asked because I didn't ask him.
Yeah, it's like when you go back in time in a video game and you're like, wait, I know the answer to this one. Don't do that. It's like that all over again. So, yeah, I feel very vindicated and being bullied.
That happens.
Yeah, thanks.
Character.
He's the main character. You gotta have some negative feedback.
I am the main character. But much like Evil Dead 3 Army of Darkness should have been called Medieval Dead.
For real. Oh, here it goes.
Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom should have been called Indiana Jones. And that was a completely original idea I had. I mean, maybe somebody's thought of that before.
Ooh, completely original.
If that... Was it you?
I'm pretty sure it was me.
I don't think it was you. I think it was me. Anyway,
if you think he's smart, just know that in this same movie, this same sit session, he made a Willie joke. So.
Yeah, Willie Scott, the character, Anyway, so I remember really enjoying this movie. I thought, based off of Draven's feedback for the first movie, I thought he would enjoy this one more. And, he loves this movie. I know that through and through. Like, he thinks it's so good. I think he rated it like a 20 out of 10 while we were talking upstairs.
That's what I heard.
Yikes.
But, kind of as we get into this, one final thing I wanted to talk about was I apologize for the background. We've had a change of setting.
We're truly basement dwellers.
It's my fault.
If you've ever seen the movie like Gone Girl, please tell me if this is going to be a proper joke because I've never seen it. I just know he hides the girl in his basement, I think. I bet this is what his basement looks like. Spoilers for Gone Girl, by the way. I've never seen that movie.
What? Maybe that's what we should do after the Indiana Jones movies.
Gone Girl. Yeah. You're going to come back for Gone Girl.
All
in
right.
September,
Gone Girl.
We're watching Gone Girl.
That's it.
All right.
That's the movie.
That is the
no
move.
big deal. I'm writing it down right now.
Okay.
I have no idea what this movie is, so I don't know.
I've written it down.
He just wrote it down. Did here.
We'll forget about it in 5 minutes.
Yes. So Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is a movie that I really enjoyed. I would say, in my opinion, it's definitely a lot darker in tone, I think, but it's less serious.
Yeah, they tried to fit in a lot more corny jokes.
Yeah, there's a lot more, and then there's like the fondling of the statue. I love it, by the way. But
I mean, I said this in the previous one before we cut it, but he asked me if what my comparisons between the first one and this one is.
Oh, yes.
And I think that like the first one is more grounded and it makes more sense as to where they are, where they're going. It makes more sense as to how they're acting in the certain scenarios, and the fights make a little more sense. And I just think that the first one and the second one are like, one's heads, one's tails, flip of the coin. Which type of version of the Indiana Jones films do you like? You have that side, and then you have this side for this film, which is one-liners, cheesy jokes, Fortnite map-esque biomes.
don't forget, we actually got the Fortnite glider in this one with the.
Oh yeah,
that's true.
And like, there's just so much stuff that doesn't actually make any sense whatsoever, but you're just chilling.
And the acting was, I think, worse. In this one than the
I
first one,
do
but
agree.
Yeah,
but at the same time, I do think there's some charm of this one as well, because I do think I like this one more because I am more of a fan of the cheesier, more stupid-esque vibe, because at least it's more entertaining. The first one, I see why people would like it, but there's certain parts of it that I'm like, I'm bored. This one, I feel like I was at least entertained the whole time.
That's good. So, How do I want to say this? So, would we say our biggest criticism of this movie is kind of the performances of it, or like some of the acting in it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say that there was
maybe not even the acting. Maybe it's the character.
her
Character.
She is the best character so far introduced in this franchise. You guys are literally crazy.
It's
Are you sure? When we were watching the movie, you had different things to say.
Were we talking about the same movie?
Listen, all I'm saying is she was pretty good.
At screaming for no reason.
She was pretty good.
I think 90% of her dialogue was just her screaming.
It's pretty freaking good.
It's so bad, man. I don't know. I don't know if that was just what she was written to do, just be an annoying little, or
So, what do you want to say?
or if she wanted to bring that character out and be that way for some reason. I'm not a fan. I thought that it was super annoying, and if I was Indiana Jones, she would have been offed halfway through the movie. So
He definitely had the opportunity to just let her die
Oh,
multiple
yeah,
times.
for sure. I should have.
She went up and down on the toaster like 4 times.
Yeah. The toaster that from one angle is like a 1 mile drop, and then from another angle it's like 20 feet.
Right. And I just hate it. It's so bad.
The best part I still love is just when the stone is like turned on. Me and Brett are watching, and then the guy like he drops it into the guy's hand when they're hanging on the bridge, and it's like turned on, so it's like super hot. He's like, oh! He throws it up, and then a second later, Indiana Jones grabs it. It's turned off, and it's cooled. He's like, yeah.
You love it.
Yeah. I don't know how we jumped from her being lowered into the lava pit to that, but I'll take it.
I don't know either.
I thought we were just talking about inconsistent scene to scene.
was just
That's kind of where I was.
There's
going
so
with.
many.
That's where I was throwing
But
it.
it was a movie filmed in the 80s, and that's kind of the thing of the 80s.
I guess
a lot
that's
of
true.
inconsistencies, a lot of bad acting.
but
we love it.
It's so fun to point out though,
nostalgic.
because like I said, the biggest one that we pointed out was the fucking biome changing
Yeah.
one. Also, before that, even the part where they jump out of the helicopter or plane, whatever.
Yeah.
Yes.
They jump out of the plane and they're like, "What are we gonna do? This huge drop." They're like,
Or here's the thing that I don't understand.
Iconic scene, though, by the way.
The villain in the beginning when they were in China, he
Lao
like,
Chi, yeah.
he had the most elaborate plan set up from the beginning. Like
To have him on the-
he was gonna poison Dr. Jones, and then
Dr. Jones.
he was gonna shoot him, and then he let Indiana Jones steal his airplane, and he already had that planned out.
Yeah, he was
was
just
gonna
like-
like skydive out of it. And
Yeah,
let the plane
yeah.
crash. Like,
I think I would compare him more to someone like he's more like Emperor Palpatine. He just has so many contingency plans.
I guess.
He's like so
he never came back at all. Anyway, right? Like he just
plot device.
like that villain just had.
He was just there to introduce the story, and then he
No,
left.
he was just there to introduce the girl character that we all love and
I
enjoy.
suppose.
Yeah, well, bouncing back to her for a second, I think I briefly mentioned this. I'm pretty sure I saw somewhere that she is like the wife of one of the producers or something for this movie. So I don't know if just nepotism won on that one, but like,
Do you
hell
think?
yeah.
But this question is. For
I think
both
the
of you.
character's just written poorly.
I was gonna ask, do you think that they wrote her character to be like that, or that she just took the liberty of making her character as annoying as possible?
I personally think it was written that way. I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
it could be either or. Like I could see her just going in and be like, you know what? I'm gonna be annoying as F. We're just gonna go with it. But I do think it was probably written to just be this little pansy loser who's just like Indiana Jones slap.
Yeah.
5 seconds later, help me.
Yeah.
Slap.
I will.
or when he hands her the gun and she just like does
Yeah.
it for 30 seconds and then throws it out the window.
He goes.
It was hot.
He goes. Where's the gun? She's like, it was hot and I broke my nail.
I don't know. I think they're compared to Marion in the first
Downgrade
movie.
as F.
100%, I believe a downgrade as far as characters you want to keep around. But I think it's a nice juxtaposition from one character to the next. I thought that was interesting. I get to see Indy interact with different people, and then you get to see from the first movie to the next, as Draven has so kindly pointed out. In the first movie, we had the monkey, and then in the second movie, we had Short Round. As put by you. Cancel Draven.
Listen, I don't know why, but like talking about the monkey, I'm like, the
Kong
monkey died.
is a
I'm like, is
monkey.
this kid gonna die? And then
No,
they just
but-
looked at me.
Let's take a moment and recognize that if Indy would have just listened to Short Round, none of that stuff would have happened.
Yeah,
Short Round was on top of it the whole movie.
All I'm gonna say is the shorty guy, the kid,
Yeah.
Coleman,
the one that you compared to a monkey.
shut the fuck up. Listen, all I'm saying is that last podcast, this man told me that a lot of people don't like his character and think he's annoying. You're wrong. The girl is clearly the one you should be annoyed at. You're insane.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely. I don't remember Willie being that annoying, but
Go ahead, make your Willie joke.
I can't. It's not there yet. But I definitely do think that was probably my biggest criticism looking at this movie now. I think this movie is too long. Also,
yeah.
It's a 2-hour movie, and like we were pretty busy and distracted otherwise today, and like I admit that. So this podcast is probably going to be a little lighter on the subject than whatever usual. But I don't know. I feel like this movie is like. There's just like I don't know where you would cut anything. Probably the beginning. You could
In the beginning.
But I like the beginning. I love the
I
beginning.
think they spent a lot of time running around through the mines with the carts
kids
and everything, and the child slaves. I think they spent way too much time with all
Yeah,
that.
they
I think they could have cut out a lot.
Yeah,
of
they should have just left. Is that what you're getting at?
I mean,
No.
Okay, my bad.
Like I said, that is one thing. It's a huge negative when you think about it logically, but I think that is one thing that keeps it more interesting. Is just the biomes are constantly changing. One minute you're in the snow area, then the next you're in like this jungle, the next you're in the mines. Like there's a lot of different like set pieces here, and like it keeps it more interesting. But logically, it makes no sense.
Well, the only thing I will say as far as that goes with the kind of lush river into the village that's kind of like almost like tundra fucking terrible, like how it was when they got to the village in the beginning.
Yeah.
The only thing I will say is that it's meant to be decaying because of the magic that is like taking from it, like the darkness or whatever. So there's something to explain that. And then of course, I guess coming from a mountain to a river isn't impossible, but wouldn't have been my first thought, Steven Spielberg.
Let's not forget the epic explosion when that plane crashed into the side of the mountain.
I too am a fan of combustion. But yeah, and especially considering it was out of fuel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was out of
fuel. Yeah, it was out of fuel.
That was the whole reason the plane was going down.
Yep. Maybe they.
Do you know how to fly a plane? Shouldn't be too
They
hard.
rigged it with explosives before they jumped out.
They probably, honestly, yeah.
I mean, he had a contingency plan for everything else. Why not have one there too?
What happens?
Yeah, just in case it happens.
What happens if the plane doesn't crash?
Then he goes. That's why he doesn't come back, because then like he's just sitting there, just cuts back to him at the end, and like him, if the plane crash didn't kill him, he's like, the cult's got this.
That's fair. So, okay, how's this for a thought topic? I think this is probably, of all of the Indiana Jones movies, and this is, without you having seen the other ones, of course, you having at some point, I think this is probably visually the most grotesque of them.
I would say so.
We've got alligators or crocodiles, depending on when you see them. They're tearing apart guys. They're doing their spins down at the bottom at the end. You've got
the feast
the heart,
scene.
the feast scene, cutting open the snake, having eels come out.
Yeah.
The monkey brain.
Monkey brains,
oh my god, so good. The eye soup.
Yep. There was definitely a lot of grotesque stuff.
It was basically like all the stuff that Walmart sells for Halloween.
Pretty
Like
much, yeah.
cool stuff.
All right.
Yeah.
Good soup.
It's good soup. But I don't know. I think the heart stuff especially makes me uncomfortable.
I thought it was probably the coolest part of the movie too.
You thought that was the coolest part?
I mean, it's interesting. Like I said, I didn't expect any of that nonsense to happen in Indiana, especially after the first one. Like, where did this stuff come from?
Right, because the first one was very much just at the end, like, hey, there's crazy shit. Nazis are dying.
See, and also I think, like, I do think that a lot of people probably prefer the first film. I'm not really in the communities of this franchise, so I imagine the first film is probably...
I think, and I believe I said this earlier, the first film for me just has a lot more, like, it might not be a better made movie, or it might be more boring, but it's just the nostalgia.
Yeah, for sure.
Movie.
I just think I like the cult vibe more than the Nazi vibe.
That's
fair. I just think I like that aesthetic more than I do.
I agree.
But like I said, I figured that the original is probably a fan favorite. I mean, it's kind of hard to beat the classics, especially if you like watch the original first. Like if you watch the original movie of a franchise, usually that ends up being your favorite.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I really I think there was a point in time where I thought Temple of Doom was my favorite movie. But I think time has went on. I think I still prefer Raiders, the first movie, more. I don't know. I think there's a lot to like about this movie, though. I think visually, I think it's really cool. I think the the message and like Indy's like pseudo arc in this movie as opposed to the first one. Where the first one's more like, hey, I want to see the treasure open too, right? Like that's the thing. In this movie, he's not out to get anything directly. He starts the movie trying to help someone, which is weird because this is a prequel. But like you can't look at it like a prequel in a way because it's being presented second. So it's weird in that sense. So I don't know. Maybe it's just carpet matching the drapes. Ark of the Covenant. You want to see what's in there, but I don't know. I think Indy is a much better character in this movie. The first movie makes him kind of sound like a Han Solo type scoundrel almost. Everybody talks to him like fuck you. They don't say that, but
I do think he has more of a personality in this one for sure.
Yeah.
He definitely has more like we were saying, one-liners, some cheesy dialogue, which in an '80s movie I enjoy that.
Yeah.
So I feel like the first one he was a little more like bold. He just didn't say a whole lot half the time. So
and
I do think though that in the first film, like he definitely uses arsenal a lot more though too. Like in this one, I don't remember seeing a whole lot of whip cracking and all that stuff like the first one was.
Not really.
Not as much. Yeah, no. You got more of it in the beginning, but you get very quickly disarmed. Once they get into the not the temple, but like the caves and stuff, down to like the cult.
Especially once he got brainwashed for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then he snapped out of it. All he had was his fists.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was pretty good.
Question. So
Willie, it's me. I'm back.
Well, so Willie, right?
Me to my penis. There it is.
He's been waiting for it.
So Willie here, right? This girl character was introduced because it was like one of the villains in the beginning, like his girl, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, why does not Indiana kill her at all?
Well,
I just never understood because like
think
she's not
necessarily a villain
she's not
herself.
like that. No, it's more just like he's like I get the vibe that he's like a big owner of the club or something, and maybe the club employs her as like the number one, like the leading lady.
Gotcha.
So it's less so that she's in on anything, but more so that she is associated with him. If that makes sense, that's how she gets roped in.
I was just curious because, like, in certain times, like I think of Indiana Jones as just going in and killing whoever the fuck he sees.
Yeah.
But at other times, like there's certain scenes, like he didn't kill any of the people that like in the cult that were like, being controlled to do it. Like all those people that were like in the mines and stuff. Like he let them all go, right?
Right.
But I don't know. There's just certain times where I'm just like, why are we killing this person? It's so random. But like usually they're all part of either the cult or part of the Nazis, so it makes sense.
Right.
But I was just curious since she was technically. She
definitely wasn't very attached to the guy she was with in the beginning, though, because she wanted to sleep with Indy fairly quickly in the movie.
Yeah, no,
that's true.
I love that scene where they're going back and forth and like it's a fun scene.
Yeah.
It's a fun scene. Come on now, that's a fun scene. It's well made. It shows like, his reaction, and he's thinking like, should I go? And then she's like, do I go over there? And then, of course, as he's like about to go out, that's when he gets attacked and he's getting like choked out and stuff. And she actually makes the choice.
She's pissed.
She goes out there. She's like, Indiana Jones, slip through your fingers. And it's just him with his fingers out in the water.
That's pretty much how the scene went, like 100%.
That's how she sounds.
Yeah, you could have acted out that scene.
I word for worded that. That was verbatim. And like that was probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Another one I really like is the bridge at the end. I don't care. I like the bridge at the end.
I do think it was very corny the way they did it. Like
him just like holding it.
He's
right.
clearly holding the sword like he's about to cut it, and they keep inching forward. And then when he does cut it, they're all like,
"Oh!" They're like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "What do you mean? I've had this whole right here."
What was I gonna say? I also think that whole bridge scene was like pretty lackluster as far as like all the I'm blanking on the villain's name.
Like the main guy?
Yeah.
Oh God, I know the group is the Thuggy, but
whatever his name is, I thought he was a pretty lackluster villain.
Yeah,
yes.
I wanted to say that even though I think I prefer this movie, I think the first one had a stronger main villain, the guy with like the hat and stuff. He was cool, and I also think the ending, the roundup of like the treasure and like all the things coming out and just like burning everyone alive, that was cooler than just everyone falling off a bridge.
Yeah,
I will say that I think the first one ended better and had a better main villain. But yeah, I agree. I think the bridge was kind of lackluster for the finale roundup. It wasn't bad. Like it wasn't.
I just like the set piece of it.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was cool. The alligator/crocodiles at the bottom, and then all Indy's cornered. He's not cornered, but he's stuck in the middle of the bridge. People coming at him from both sides. Like it was definitely a stressful situation, but
Right.
I think that I just think that whatever his name is was a
Oh yeah, but kind of a boring.
he was a
villain.
pretty bland.
The
villain.
cult itself was a cool like idea and like presence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Main villain though of it was kind of like.
I think
I mean, it's cool that he can, Kali Ma people and take their hearts out of their chest and all that. But aside from that, like, he didn't really have anything going for him.
I thought the guy in charge of like the actual like the above ground, like the not the Maharaja, not the boy,
Yeah.
but like the I forget what his title was, but he was like the consulate guy. He's like, normally when you come into someone's home, guests do not, insult them,
yeah.
right? And then the guy, he was down there. He was the one that got caught on the wheel that was spinning down and letting her back down again. He's the guy,
yeah.
He got thrown
that guy.
under it and pinned.
I think it would have been better for him to be the villain, not because he was a compelling character as is, but someone in the role of like that consulate, someone you already had met before. Hey, these guys are bad.
Yeah.
That would have been better, personally. I mean, it's great that he was in on it, regardless.
Yeah.
But it was interesting to see just how that ended up turning out, and that leads to my like another cool part for Indy. Like, as you go down there, you take care of, you're fighting, doing all these different things. Well, no, he hadn't fought yet. I'm sorry, I lied. I apologize. When he's down there, he's like he sees the little egg things or whatever, all three of them, and he's going to grab them. He puts them in the bag, and then that's when you hear the kids screaming in the mines for the first time, and that's like. I think Indy always probably would have done that, but it's like, in this movie, he's just like, oh yeah, I got to go down there and check it out. And they're both like, what's going on? And then you get the Five Nights at Pancot Palace jump scare. And yeah, no, a lot about this movie, I just really enjoy. I like the way it's set up. And I think it's both more and less cheesy at the same time. I don't know. It's hard to explain.
I do enjoy how the 80s will like set up a joke before it happens. So like for as an example, like when Indy and Short Round are stuck in that little room and the spikes are coming down on them.
Yeah.
And what's her name is trying to let them out, but she comes across the two dead bodies. She's like, "There's two dead bodies out here."
There should be
and
two.
Indy's like, "There's gonna be two more.
Yeah.
Hurry up!"
Yeah.
I was going to talk about that.
I
scene.
love how the 80s like they always set up like
Yeah.
easy
Yeah.
jokes like that.
Yeah.
I can appreciate that.
I was going to talk about that scene too because I really thought like that's literally the only thing that was even remotely cool with her character is that she ends up saving them by
Yeah.
pulling the thing, but then is immediately just reverted because she pulls the trap again.
Yeah,
Because she just
she runs right in there.
yeah. I thought that was cool though because she has to like go through all these bugs and stuff
Yeah.
and she has to like pull it. So I thought that was cool, but.
Okay, I know I was joking with you, but Draven, what did you think of Short Round as a character overall?
Yeah, he was pretty neat.
You like him?
Like I said, going into this, usually, like, as a fan of like huge horror movies and stuff,
Yeah.
kid actors in horror movies usually aren't the move. Sometimes they can be okay, but in a different genre, it's interesting to see the kid actors because this one, he was great. I thought he did really good in his role, and like I said, anyone who thinks he was like dumb or annoying or something, I think is kind of pointing that at the wrong character.
He just
here.
got an Oscar.
Did he really?
Yeah, and Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh,
I've
okay.
yet to see
Yeah,
that movie.
I haven't watched it.
Me
either.
too.
But yeah, I think all in all, like he was a pretty good companion actually for Indiana, and I thought he was cool. I think it's kind of lame that he just randomly, especially since this is considered a prequel.
Yeah.
I think it's weird that in the first film he's not there. Or
Yeah, I mean, I did really like how they introduced him into this movie.
yeah,
Like he just came in out of nowhere, and
Right.
she's like, "Why is there a kid driving the
Where's
car?"
your kid? Yeah.
yeah, he's just driving
Yeah,
the car.
it cuts to his feet. He's got those wooden blocks
Yeah.
taped to his feet. Yeah,
That was dope.
I personally, and this is like from hearing the news that he's still not in Indy 5.
Oh, he's not.
Yeah, yeah.
Has he
apparently.
not been in 3 or 4 either?
No, he is not. He's not. Literally not in any other movie other than this one.
Yeah.
A lot of people were like, "Oh, this would be a great it's the last Indy movie. It'd be a great time to bring him back." Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Because it just would or whatever, right? And I personally think if there ever was to be any form of spin-off in this universe, and like they've already been like, hey, Indiana Jones,
the story's done.
he's done.
Yeah.
When Harrison Ford's done, he's done. And this
Yeah.
is the last movie. I think if they were to do anything, I'd love to just see like if that was the only thing they did, I'd be like, okay,
a short round spinoff.
I'd be like
I'd
a
watch.
Yeah.
a
I'd give it a
short.
shot.
Yeah, I'd like a short round, just a one movie, or if they didn't want to do that kind of budget, they could do a one TV show
Yeah.
thing for like a one limited series, Disney Plus motherfucker.
Yeah.
That's what the plus
What he
stands
said.
for. Yeah, that's what I think. I think short rounds
To
are
be on
pretty-
Peacock.
Wait a minute.
It would be.
Why has it got to be on Peacock?
Because no one knows what Peacock is, so they'd have to have something to get people to watch their streaming service.
Isn't Indiana Jones on Disney Plus though?
Yeah.
Listen, I was just giving it. I'm sorry, Peacock. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings.
Nobody likes Peacock. Fuck you. The Office couldn't save you, idiots.
Tough.
Yeah, tough sell. But okay. We've already been making fun of some of the audio of the previous movie with this, but I think there's two things that I think are pretty worth bringing up. First is the soundtrack. John Williams, once again. We love John Williams, here.
He always does great.
Does great.
Did a lot better in this movie than last one.
It's just because he didn't play the theme song
Yes,
as many
that
times.
was a negative critique of mine from the first film. They
bet.
use that thing every 10, not even 10, 5, every 5
You know,
minutes.
technically speaking here, and I could see where the blame could go either way here. The first movie, you could argue it's the sound designer and not.
Oh, I'm not
the
saying. I'm
composer.
not even remotely saying that it was him who was the problem. I was just saying, like in general,
Right.
the soundtrack for the film.
Oh, I think
I'm
what
also
they
thinking
do-
he could have just showed up and said, "All right, this is what I got, and here's
And then
3
they're
tracks."
like, "Yo, let's just use this one all the time." Yeah, I know
Well,
what you
I
mean.
think what they do, and obviously I have nothing to do with the film industry, but I believe that they probably come to him and they're like, "This is the kind of scene we want. This is the kind of vibes." Kind
Yeah, and they're like, "Make something for it."
Yeah,
Yeah.
make something for it, and then he makes something good, and they're like, "We'll just use it 20 times."
Yeah. I was gonna say they don't
This
usually.
works for all these
yeah.
different scenes.
They're-
Let's just throw it in there.
They don't usually. They aren't usually the ones that like put them in the places where they go. They just create something for a scene,
Yeah.
and then the
Right.
people who are making the movie will put whatever they want wherever they want.
Right.
So
I honestly, I think it's really interesting stuff. Have you ever like any of you guys, all 2 of you? I don't know why I said it like that. Have like you ever heard of
George back there, listen.
You actually freaked me out there for a minute. I was like, "What's going on?" And then I saw my shadow. I was like, "Oh no, it's George!" And like I remember hearing, I forget what project it was for, but they were talking about how like if like a composer does like a commission for something, and then they don't like it, they technically have. I think it was for a game, to be honest, but they were like, technically, you know, that work, what like even though they don't use that track, that theme or anything in the game or whatever, they still own the rights to it because it was created
for them.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then what ended up happening was they kept something that they used for the trailer. It was for Doom Eternal, when everything like
Yeah.
blew up with Mick Gore, and that's what it was.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember
There was
that.
like a big falling out with that, and then like basically one of the things he said was, "Hey, they wanted like a couple tracks made for the potential use in a trailer, and then they didn't use that in a trailer. They just reused one of my things from the game, but then for the final soundtrack they put it in, but that wasn't something they used, and it was like a big weird thing. And I think music in media is so weird.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. It's very touchy.
Like I mean, end of the day, you think, okay, well, it's just the studio that owns the copyrights to everything, which is true.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I think it's so weird. That,
It's just so weird to be a creator, to create things for like a company or something, and be
is.
like, "Hey, I made this," but they're like, "Well, we used it,
But
and it's ours.
it's
you
ours.
don't get
Yeah,
to."
or even like on TikTok a lot, I'll see where like as you're scrolling through, it'll at the bottom it'll say like sound removed for copyright.
Yeah,
issues.
copyright
It's
reason,
Like,
yeah.
just because somebody made a 15, 20-second TikTok.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
sound-
copyright is a really weird and it's super touchy thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I don't know. Copyright, I feel like gets a little stupid sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I do think if you're a creator and you're making music or making whatever for a film, a game, whatever, if you make it, even though that like the company who uses it should have a little bit of right to it,
Mm-hmm.
the creator should always have the right to things that they create.
I
In
think-
my opinion,
You would think so.
but
I
But
think
it's
doesn't
like,
work that way.
But it's like they make it to sell it to that person.
yeah.
So then, like once they make it and give it off to them, they
it's like
I
a
know.
commission.
yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
But like it sucks though, especially like for something like that where they don't use it,
Mm-hmm.
but then they just take credit for like, hey, this is ours.
Yeah,
Like-
thankfully, I think the number one thing will always be crediting. Obviously,
Yeah,
like you know, I bring up Game of Thrones every time. Like, yeah, I know who made that. Like, I know. And Brett, did you know that Iron Man 1 was scored by Ramin Djawadi, same guy who did Game of Thrones?
I did not know that.
I didn't either, but I remember Iron Man 1's.
And
Soundtrack.
He wasn't good enough to do the second, third Iron Man.
You know, he might have done 2, but I don't think he did 3.
Okay.
And I don't think he did much MCU after the first phase either. But I think soundtrack stuff is just so interesting. Music overall, like I find myself like sticking to these different people. Like we've got like another one that's bigger for me right now is Bear McCreary. He did like God of War.
Mm-hmm.
Found out he did The Walking Dead. Thought that was kind of weird. I was like, that's a weird crossover I didn't expect. And then like you just see these random movies, and I'll be like, I just find myself looking at the composer now. I'm just like, I wonder who did this. And like I'm usually like recognizing a lot of the names
God
now.
of War, Walking Dead. Is that the one that also composed or whatever in that Freaky movie?
Yes, that was the one I was telling you.
Because I remember that you were talking about.
Because I remember there was some side movie that we'd watched recently. Yep. I was like, I couldn't remember which one it was to put my name to it. Yep. But yeah.
I can always fall back on the Skyrim soundtrack.
Well, kind of. Hashtag me too.
What?
Yeah, Jerry Sold got like me too.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Dang.
That's why he's not going to be doing it anymore.
Well, the Skyrim soundtrack is still good.
Goated. Yeah. No, I think they're going to probably end up just having the guy who did the Fallout soundtracks do, because he's doing the Starfield one. So
okay.
The Einonzer or whatever, however you pronounce it. So I
haven't played as much of Fallout as I would have liked to be able to recognize the soundtrack, but I remember it being good.
He did. Do you remember that like Elder Scrolls Blades spinoff?
Yeah.
Like game, he did that.
Okay.
Which sounded fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it was cool enough, I guess. But I suppose we went on a little bit of a tangent about music and copyright for a second there. So
still ties in, then, nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, it started in a good place, well in heart. But the other thing with music, or not music, but sound that I wanted to bring up as Brett and I were counting throughout this film, how many Wilhelm screams did we end up with by the end?
There was either I think I stopped counting at 4 or 5, but the one that
I
got
think it
me,
was 5.
The one that got me the most is when the villain fell into
the
river. All of him is underwater except for the arm that the crocodiles just pulled off. Yeah, he still somehow manages to let out that Wilhelm scream.
Well, it's a good. Indiana Jones is a movie where, as he was holding up the guy's heart, his still beating heart as he pulled it out of his chest, and he's going down into the fire, the heart caught on fire.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So his arm, much like that in that situation, was like a voodoo doll of its own, where he was able to speak through his fingertips.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
for sure.
You agree?
No.
You don't agree?
Just another thing that they just didn't really pay attention to.
Because the one dude was going down into the fire, so like as his body was heating up and catching fire, his heart was still like a part of him.
Yeah.
So it still caught like.
That part was cool. I just meant like the whole hand thing. Screaming. That's a stretch. That was a little dumb. But the heart thing was cool.
The dude could hold a flaming heart, but he can't hold a hot stone for a couple seconds.
Yeah, what about that? What about that?
Yeah,
Man,
that just popped into my head. What's up with that, Coleman? Tell us.
Yeah.
Rock was the diamond rock or whatever was just hotter. That's all it is. I mean,
I guess. Hotter than lava.
I mean, I think maybe you guys might be approaching it from the wrong situation. I think while it was burning through the bag, yes, it was clearly, hot. Maybe it was more of the fact that it was a divine power that he was unable to hold it, because Indy was saying the words at the time. That's what caused it all to start, doing. I don't know what the words were. I mean, he was mind controlled. I don't know. It's just said speaking Hindi with the subtitles. I don't know what he said. You know what I mean?
No good.
Kalima, Kalima. What? Sorry. No, I'm not sorry. But I don't know. I really do enjoy this movie, and we probably won't go, just for the sake of just hanging out, we won't go too much longer before we get into each of our. We do a final verdict. I don't know if you've never seen these, have you?
No.
Yeah. Okay. So we just talk, and then
Am
right
I a
around.
bad friend if I don't watch all the podcast episodes?
I would prefer you didn't. It is quite all right. No.
They're pretty cringe.
Yeah, but
this is what you're saying. This is what it is. It's cringe.
Pretty much.
10 out of 10.
Pretty accurate. But we go towards the last little bit, and then we usually do a final verdict. We each kind of summarize our thoughts, and then do like a rating out of 10 on a 0.5 scale. So like we could do 6, 6.5, 7.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And we each do that. But since there will be 3 of us, we'll probably want to allot a few extra more minutes of time to that, I suppose. And fun fact, for normally with our podcast, they're horror related.
Mm-hmm.
We've been ranking final girls in the concept of a final girl, right?
Explain.
It's just like in a horror movie, like, you know, you got Scream, right? So everyone's dying around you. Who comes out on top always? Sydney. You watch Halloween, who comes out on top all the time? Laurie.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's just the people that go through all these things in horror movies and then they come out on top. It's usually a girl. It's a final
Ripley would be another example from Alien. Like she, like everybody else dies, but then she's the final. And it's always the girl at the
Makes
80s
sense.
or 90s or whatever. But we've been ranking those, but thankfully we won't have to do that here, as Willie Scott does make it to the end of the movie, but it is not a horror film, so we'll be okay.
Where would we rank her though? We rank her number 1.
What I was actually building to,
He's like,
You sure about that?
I gotta say, she is my favorite Willie Scott. Of all of the ones I've ever come across, that's my favorite Willie Scott. Not my favorite Willie, even. My favorite Willie Scott. Not even Willie Nelson could. But anyway, what I was recommending is we start out by doing our ranks, which is pretty simple. Okay. I think we can all agree that. Well, no. I would. We can do that now, actually.
all right, let's go.
I
for
rank
it.
Indy 1 over 2.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
1 over 2. You're
Like I said earlier, I don't know if it's just the nostalgia of, you know, the first Indiana Jones movie I ever saw, or
I'm the complete opposite.
but
you're
2 over 1.
You're 2 over 1.
but I think that if I were to sit down and watch the next one, I would probably like it more than the first one.
That's
So
fair.
we'll see.
That's fair.
I won't be here when you guys watch the third one, but I'll watch it on my own and then watch the podcast. So.
We'll just get a comment saying, "You guys are wrong. Shut the fuck up." Oh, I forgot about that though. We are a week behind, and we're building up to Indy 5, right? Mm-hmm. So because we're behind a week, next week we're doing 2 movies.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh no, 4 hours of Indy.
But Draven,
But each movie has gotten better so far, so that should continue.
Oh,
Should be an enjoyable
the next
4
one's
hours.
2 hours and 8 minutes,
be
and that
fine.
alone makes me want to die.
Fine.
here's what I'm going to say, and I don't know if you can, but based off of what we know that Draven likes, I think the next movie will be hopefully fine. Hopefully that can be what it is.
I think he's just being over dramatic right now.
Yeah,
I think he'll enjoy him a lot more than he thinks.
I
2
think
was good. The first one was fine. I just thought the first one was kind of boring.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think Crystal Skull, as much as most people don't like it,
I thought it was a good movie.
I thought it was
I
fine.
remember it being.
I have nostalgia goggles for it, and
Never
straight
watched
up,
it.
I think Draven will really enjoy it. It's got Shia LaBeouf in it.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Do it, do it. But
Transformers?
I mean, are we doing it?
That's the next series.
No, we are not.
I-
We're Transformers.
if we ever did Transformers, I would only want to do the first one.
I'd be
like
okay
the
with I
2007.
just would not want to watch the whole franchise.
No, I wouldn't
God.
either. I like it. I like the first one.
The first one.
I used to like the second one, but then I watched it like 2 years ago, and I was like, okay, that's not good. I realized like what everyone was saying, because I finally watched it with like a critical lens.
I watched the first one, but again, it's just one of those things where it's just not my type of movie.
Honestly, it is pretty disappointing when you like in your head this movie is great, and then you go back and watch it years later, and you're like, oh, this movie's actually kind of trash.
I hate that.
But
But
you've been living a lie for
Yeah.
so long.
That's never happened to me because all my movies are quality. You know how it is.
Whatever, dude.
I actually don't know if I've ever had that feeling.
Really?
I mean, sometimes games happen that way, but a lot of times, like movies, not really. There's not really a whole lot of movies that I've went back and rewatched that have been bad. Usually they hold up. If sometimes they don't hold up as good as I remember, but
I don't
usually they're
know.
decent.
Transformers 2: Revenge of the Fallen was pretty ass.
Sorry.
I guess the only way to know is to watch it and do a podcast episode.
Oh
about
no, we will. Unless we're looking for easy bait to just trash on a movie, then no. God, no, please no. But okay. Is there anything that either of you wanted to bring up about Indy before we hop into some final verdicts? Like anything from this movie? I have some actual like. Draven, I shared you that one tweet from the thread, where with the fly.
Yeah,
I read through. It was a bunch of like fun like facts and
I
behind.
told you I
scenes.
caught that just randomly in
I
that
know.
scene. I was like, why is there a random fly like on or in his mouth? But it was like a 2-second thing. I was
I
like,
know.
"Wha-"
We'll have to go over a few of those in like after our final
Final
verdicts.
verdicts.
But is there anything about this movie critically or praising that you wanted Either of you would.
I'll say whatever I want to say in finals. So.
Yeah, I can't think of anything right now, but when we get to the end, I'll
put it
I'll
on.
have something.
Put it on the post. All right,
Yeah.
Draven, would you like to start? Would you like me to start? Brett, would you like to start?
I think Draven should start.
Oh, I should start. That's fair since I'd like.
What did you rate?
More.
You rated the first one as 6.5.
6.5.
I put it as a
8.
8. Yes.
I already knew he was gonna rate it an 8 too. Anyway,
It's a good movie.
Anyway, final verdict here. So again, as I've said before, I do think that this movie is more interesting and more fun to me than the first one. I thought the first one got boring in certain parts, and I also thought the first one had a lot of not a lot. There was a few scenes like the submarine scene and stuff that just didn't need to be there and just dragged on time. Really didn't have to be there. Didn't do anything for the plot and or story. Same thing. I don't know why I said that.
Yeah. Why did you say that?
I don't know. Anyway,
He's off the podcast.
I'm the pro here. So for this movie, I do think it's new season here, the new season of Indiana Jones. The map changes quite a bit.
Oh my
I do
God.
think that the loophole is a lot better here.
The whip got nerfed.
Yeah, the whip did get nerfed.
Yeah.
I do think that the skin is rocking pretty well. I mean, we did get a shirtless version. Okay, I'm going to stop talking like this. This is cringe. Anyway, this movie I do think is a lot funnier. There's a lot more moments where I was laughing, and I think it did go for that vibe. I think it definitely pushed.
And I think
more,
I think I
yeah.
tried to sell that to you was that it kind of comes into its own a little
Yeah,
bit.
you can definitely see a lot more of the 80s cheese in this movie than you could in the first one. And I like that. If I'm watching an 80s movie, I'm expecting that type of cheese and jokes set up. And it's weird because the first one, the best character in the first film was the girl character, in my opinion. I liked her
Marion.
more than, Marianne. I liked her more than Indiana Jones here. But in this movie, Indiana Jones is way better than the girl counterpart. Willie was terrible.
Let me ask you this.
Okay.
Okay. If Marion was in this movie as she was in the first film, is this Indy better? Is this interpretation of Indy better than the first movie?
In the first movie.
Because on one hand, I think, okay, it's a prequel, yes, so you can't look at it like it's all character development, but it's also they've kind of come into their own of how they want to portray Indy. So
Yeah.
you can take it a little bit as like, okay, maybe he is a little bit different.
Yeah, a little bit goofier. A little bit,
yeah. So
I think, yeah, for sure.
you think you would pick this Indy over Marion
yeah, I
if
think
that
so.
was the case?
I do think so, but
Telling.
yeah. So just like we talked about last, because you tried to compare this to Evil Dead last time because of the side characters not being really important or all that well developed because they're just there for the counterpart of the movie, and then the next movie they're gone.
Right.
So I don't think the side characters really matter in this franchise. Indiana Jones is clearly the only one that really matters. And him being stronger in this movie means a lot more than the side character being better than him.
Right.
So I think that also shines through in this movie. And I just think with the different types of biomes and stuff, it doesn't make sense at all. But at least I get to see different vibes, different aesthetics, different set pieces set up. The first film was just all in the desert, in the desert, in the desert. And then a little bit of two, in the desert. I don't care.
Wonder if there's any desert in that movie.
In the desert.
Yeah, I think it's
I don't really care about the desert vibes, and the tomb thing I wanted more of. And I think in this movie we get a lot more time exploring the tomb and with the cult. And I like the cult more than I like the Nazi stuff. So in my opinion,
I'm glad you don't like Nazi stuff.
in my opinion, I will probably give this movie.
Ooh.
So the last movie I gave it 6.5, and I will say that I enjoyed this. What do you think?
I'm not going to say it. I won't
Say what
ruin
you're
it.
gonna say.
Say what you're going to say.
I think I heard a 7 over there, which I'm going to be close, 7.5.
Wow. I'm actually
That
befuddled.
would have been funny if you rated it lower.
I'm actually befuddled.
I definitely like this movie a lot more, and the comedic effect really helped it. The first movie just didn't have a lot of it, except a few set pieces here and there. This one had a lot more, and that's what I enjoy. It kept me more entertained, a lot less bored, more entertaining, more funny. Mm-hmm. That's what I want in the movie, and that's what I got.
That's fair enough. You got anything you're hankering to say before I continue? Would you like me to just...
I mean,
Roll
I can go into mine if you want.
Yeah, you do
go-
yours. You
okay.
do yours.
Okay. Well, so I have a lot of the same opinions as Draven. I obviously haven't seen the first one as recently as you guys have.
Yeah.
Naturally.
But I believe that the first movie probably took a lot more serious approach on Indy because they had to try to set up this character, and they didn't. I feel like they probably didn't have as much freedom to kind of explore this Indiana Jones, and and try out new things on him. You know, they wanted to set the character up and find an Indiana Jones people would like and take seriously as, you know, the respected professor, archaeologist, whatever he is.
Yes. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Well, no, just that one thing that we did talk about in the last one was that I really enjoyed, especially in the very beginning of the movie when like, you know, he knows everything to do in the opening, like the tomb where like they're trying to get the golden idol.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, don't step in the light. He puts his hand out there, the spikes go.
Yeah.
All this different stuff. He knows exactly what he's doing the whole way. It's only when everything falls apart that he's like, you know, scrambling.
I gotta say I commented on that last time too.
Like,
where I liked how he wasn't
he's competent.
Yeah, he wasn't
you know
like
what I
an absolute like beginner of the field. He knew what he was doing.
Yes.
And in this movie, being that it was a prequel, I felt like he was able to be a little bit more goofy and maybe a little bit more clueless than he was, because this was.
Speaking of which,
beforehand, go for it.
With that, like, I feel like in this version it makes sense to be a little bit of a prequel, because I feel like Indiana Jones from the first movie would have never fallen for the trap that he got in this one.
Yeah.
Which trap specifically?
The spike one coming down where they were trapped in that. Like, Indiana Jones would have solved that by himself, or he just wouldn't have been in that situation.
If you were in a spike trap like that, the next time you go delving into a dungeon,
you're going to be paying attention.
Be thinking a little more
so as a prequel, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That actually, you know, that's a really good way of looking at this movie. I didn't even think of it like that. Like that's a cool
whether
way.
that was the intention or not. I think that's something
that's how I
we
took
can
it.
take.
Yeah.
So
I like that.
That part of it I thought was I thought that's why they kind of went more goofy and, you know, a little bit more of a clueless version of Indiana Jones, just because the first movie they had to set him up and he was supposed to be this already pro gamer explorer or whatever.
With that in mind, since you two have watched the franchise, since like this one's a prequel and he's a little bit more goofy and then the first one is more serious, with the other movies, do they keep him goofy or do they keep him serious?
I feel like he's pretty serious, at least in the Crystal Skull. I feel like he still has a little bit of that goofiness to him. Like, he still has those one-liners, but
he's still more trained.
I remember him being a lot more serious.
Here's what I'll say.
Maybe not quite as serious as
I
the first
think,
movie, though.
if I remember correctly, I think 3 is probably where it gets back to, like, Raiders' level of, like, seriousness. But I feel, maybe with a little more, like, hey, we're still writing a character that's probably a little bit seen more goofy now.
Yeah.
But with 4, which, as I said, was the idea that this is 20 years later for films, Indy is older and they treat him like he is. Like, he's not making his swings. He's not doing everything perfectly. And a lot of it in that movie is played for comedic effect. So it's, I don't know. I think, you know, looking at those two, I think we've got like another serious one, and then one that I think Crystal Skull is like a full, like, I think it's a full goofy movie overall. But it's got just mostly serious undertones. But on top,
I felt like Indy was mostly serious in that movie.
Yeah. I guess it's just more his. I don't want to say physical comedy, but like the comedy of him not doing something right kind of mirrors that of Temple of Doom a little bit.
Yeah, I can see that.
I was just curious, since you both have watched it. I was curious if they followed which route they followed.
Right.
Yeah. Aside from. You know, how I feel like they had more liberty to be goofy and whatnot. I still felt like the main villain was pretty lackluster. Like I said before, I feel like they could have done a lot more with a guy who can rip parts out of people's chests.
Right.
Like a lot more flashy stuff to kind of make him, you know, more of a well-rounded villain, I guess.
Right.
Willie was annoying. We've already talked about her more than anybody else in this about this movie. I think Short Round was the real hero in the movie. Short Round's great. He's my favorite character.
Yeah.
Do you like the Goonies?
Yeah.
Goonies.
Yeah. But yeah, even just right from the start, Short Round came in to save the day as soon as he entered the movie.
Yeah.
He was driving the car, the getaway car.
Yeah, his first introduction.
Yeah, so I think Short Round was a very good character. I liked him a lot.
Yeah.
I love the relationship between him and Indiana.
Yeah.
Like the son kind of like father kind of thing that
it
he
does,
looked up to him.
It does come off that way, yeah.
I liked it.
Yeah. Overall, you know, I think it was a good movie. I would still say that the first movie is better, but again, might just be because I haven't seen it in a while, nostalgia. I would probably rate this movie, I'd give it a 7.
7?
That'd be my final score.
Yeah.
Well, just, you know, they had that nice 80s comedy, a bit of goofiness, but there was still some corny, stupid stuff watching it, like the plane crash or the biome change.
Yeah, for sure.
Stuff
for
like
sure.
that. You look at it and you're like I appreciate it a little bit, but at the same time,
It gets
like,
a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, overall, I'd give it a 7.
It's interesting where our thresholds are for these kind of things, because for me, I think of the stuff like the plane crash, the bridge, the gong where he's like using it to protect himself from
yeah,
machine
I
gun fire
forgot
in the
about
beginning.
that.
Yeah.
I think all of these scenes, they're probably the goofiest scenes in the movie, or at the very least, like the most unrealistic.
Yeah.
And I think they're probably some of my favorites as far as like they're just like set pieces that are great. I don't think they live up to the first movie, but I think they're pretty good. Characters, I think, is a better dynamic duo between Indy and Short Round as opposed to like Indy and Sala from the first movie. But for the love interest or whatever you would say in this movie, the girl, Marion tops every time.
Yes.
And back then, yeah. Anyway, so I can't help but feel that as far as the cast goes, overall lesser. The villains, as we've both all kind of talked about, I suppose, hit a lot less. I thought the cult over the Nazis was cool.
Yeah.
But I think the Nazis in the first movie works well. I guess I'm kind of more saying I prefer the cult over the Nazis because we see the Nazis twice. Like
Yeah.
in two different films.
Yeah,
But
the cults do have a more looming presence in this.
Right.
I just-
they make a lot more of an appearance.
I don't know. I
Right.
just thought the cult was unique. I think the Nazis were smarter and like the villains were definitely way better. But I just thought the cult was just a more unique take on. And Indiana Jones for an archaeologist, I never would have guessed a random cult being part of the movie.
Right.
Well, I thought where the cult was a cool angle was more of the fact that, you know, when they talk about they're seeing the ritual underground and they're like, yeah, you know, she's asking like, what's going on? What is this? What is that? And then he's like, well, no one's seen this for 500 years.
Yeah.
You know, because this cult's like starting up again. It's new.
Yeah.
And I just think like the fear of like, there's this organization that like is so ancient no one knows about it. I think that's cool. Like
And the mystery behind it too, because like when people say Nazis, it's like, oh, well, I know
Bad-
Nazis are like they're bad guys. But
bad
when you say
guys.
cult, it's like kind of got this mysterious.
Yeah, it's like, what are their
thing around
motives?
it.
What is their
Yeah.
reasoning? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
and like
And then you see a dude ripping people's hearts out, and you're like,
Yeah, that was
"Dang,
cool.
this is
Like I said,
serious."
Right.
the cult was cool, and just having, and it's also just one of those things where it looked like in this movie there was a lot more people around to fight, and there were more enemies.
Yeah.
Obviously, Nazis were huge in that first movie,
Right.
And there was a lot of them, but it just felt like more pressured
Yeah.
on
Right.
Indiana, or he's always like getting cornered by
Yeah.
cultists.
And like, quite frankly, there's not like there's running, but there's not as much fighting back in this movie overall. I mean, like as soon as there's a large group, you're just like, okay, we got to run. Like
Yeah.
there's no getting in a plane and shooting up the entire airfield like
Yeah.
in the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
So
They
like,
definitely had Indy on the run like way more often than not in this. movie.
Yeah,
and I think that's way more entertaining. Like, you know, I was thinking I was kind of bringing up like, you know, how would you feel about this Indy as opposed to the last one? And I go back and forth because on one hand, in the first movie, they treat him like he's like a godlike figure. He's the man with the silhouette who you fear,
Yeah.
that you don't want to hit with the whip, or you don't want to get hit with the whip. In this movie, you know, he's a lot more of a sympathetic character. You know, he's trying to help the kids. He's trying to help the village on pretty much his own accord.
Yeah.
Because there's no gain for him in any way from this. And I don't know. I go back and forth.
you can tell he even respects him just for the fact that like he's like, oh, you're embarrassing me for not eating like the food that they give
Yeah.
her or
Right,
whatever.
right,
Yeah,
right.
Like, you can definitely
Or,
tell
or he didn't want to let them down anyways when they were like, oh, Shiva sent you. You know, we prayed to Shiva, and Shiva sent us you. And he's like, I guess.
Yeah, he's like, guess I'm doing it then.
He's like, I mean, I'm here.
But as much as there's like all these things I enjoy, Willie, not a character I enjoy. I like
Right.
whether it be performance. You know, on one hand, I would say, hey, a performance must be pretty good if I feel this strongly about a character. But I don't like that character. I don't think she really added too much. I feel like this is a character that could have tripped out of the plane as it took off in the beginning, and she could have stayed where she was. That would have been fine. You know, she could have been there for the opening. That's cool.
I think a lot of her being there was more for either the comedic effect or to dramatize everything that was going on.
I definitely like. There's a part to play with that, like the damsel in distress type situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I understand that.
I just thought it was overplayed a little bit.
Yeah.
I think Short Round could have handled it though. I mean, like not in the same way, but like, hey, I got to go save the kid. He's not capable of doing everything
Yeah.
that an adult can
Yeah.
do.
Or instead of like Short Round and Indy being trapped and she has to find
Yeah,
a way to
him
release
being, and
them.
he has to do
Yeah,
it. That'd have been
Short
cool.
Round, you know, he steps up.
Yeah, he has to
and
save
he
him.
saves the day. Yeah,
Yeah.
that could have been a cool turn of events.
Yeah, that would have been a cool, neat set
Yeah.
piece.
I But Willie, not something I enjoyed so much. I really enjoyed the music a lot more in this movie. You pointed out that kind of ruined the first movie, and as far as that goes for me,
Ugh.
that was one of the few things that did not age very well as nostalgia wore off. But this movie, I think, handled it a lot better. There was a lot more as far as the music goes.
A wider variety of
yes.
music.
At the very least, not back to back to back to back to back.
Like I said, the first movie, every other scene it used the theme. It's like, dude, come on.
Sorry, all right, I'm done now yawning. But anyway, I was boring myself talking. But anyway, I think I like Indy. I like Short Round. He's a really cool character. I don't think child actor stuff slowed him down. Willie, not so much. But the villains were the things that really, or villain, first movie had villains. That ruined it for me.
Yeah.
I think overall, and I can't, as much as I enjoy the darker, culty part of this movie with the more whimsical tones of Indy's adventure with it, I think those go so well against each other as a yin and yang, but I don't know. I can't see myself putting this anywhere above a 7 as well. And that puts it as number 1 Temple of Doom enjoyer, Draven.
This is probably the highest you're getting. I guarantee you this is probably the highest one I'm going to rate.
I'm going to call it now. You're going to give not Temple of Doom. You're going to give Crystal Skull a 7.5 as well.
All right, we'll see.
I think you'll like that one as much. I would say your range is 7 to 8 for that one. Somewhere in that range.
I don't know if I can see myself rating an 8.
I
but
think
we'll see.
I don't think I will give it an 8, but I think you might give it an 8.
We'll see.
I'm putting that out there.
Okay.
Speaking it into the ether.
All right.
But yeah, that's kind of our review there. But as I promised or whatever, the final thing I want to talk about was, there was this thread which I showed Draven a part of it, but basically some guy was like, hey, there's a bunch of it was like for the first movie's like something anniversary or for the new movie coming out. He's like, hey, there's a bunch of stuff that's like behind the scenes that's like really interesting about the movie. And one of them being that, like, the spiders in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
So they had it on Alfred Molina's back, which is Doc Ock, if you didn't know that. I don't know if you knew. That's Doc Ock's
Really?
first film credit.
I didn't know that.
He's the guy that takes the whip and the idol and then
Okay.
gets spiked. Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah. Well, now you know about that.
Pay
So
attention.
I tried to tell Draven. Draven's like, I don't know what Marvel is, so I don't know what that means. You can't tell me. And
He only watches horror movies.
he's like, I'm not worried about
right.
it. I'm not worried about
The
it.
only genre I'm interested in. I can dabble in comedies. Comedies are fun, which is why I think this movie was kind of fun for me more than the first one because it was comedic.
Fair enough.
So
That's fair. And let's see. But no, so apparently they wanted the spiders to be moving around a bunch on their backs when they did that.
Okay.
But when they consulted their they had like an on location, like wildlife specialist or whatever. And basically they were like, yeah, they're all males, so they don't care. Then I guess they put a female on the back, and then they all started going crazy. And I was like, that would be terrifying. And I would like the fact that all these male spiders are on my back fighting over a female. I'd be like, fuck that shit. I'd be like, no.
I would not be the one doing that scene.
No. The other thing I thought was interesting, that Draven pointed out, and that's why it stood out to me, was that there's a scene with, if you remember, there's a scene where Indy is about to blow up the Ark with a rocket launcher. And then Belloc's like, blow it up, but you want to see it open just as much as I do. And then Indy sets down the rocket launcher, and that's basically almost the end of the movie. But in that scene where he's standing there, there is a fly that flies into Belloc's mouth.
I was so curious.
And then flies out. But apparently, according to that actor when talking somewhere, he said that Steven Spielberg edited out a couple of the frames where the fly flies back out of the mouth. So it made it seem like he just ate the fly.
Yeah, I was going to say, it made no, and I don't even think you caught that.
I didn't even
Because I was just sitting there, and I'm just like, at first I thought it was like just a fly in the house. I'm just like, wait a minute, that was definitely the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was... I thought that was so funny. Steven Spielberg, he seems like an interesting cat overall. But the final thing that I thought was super interesting was obviously with Star Wars, George Lucas comes as the producer and the writer, I think, for the initial movie to Steven Spielberg for the next one. And something that I kind of quoted to Draven the first time around was like, yeah, no, George Lucas, he just brought, Harrison Ford as Han Solo. He brought him over. He's like, that's our Indy. I guess he didn't want Harrison Ford. I guess
Really?
that, like, specifically, he was like, no, I don't want, I don't want him to be, who is it, Robert De Niro and whoever it is, Martin Scorsese. They work together in, like, every movie.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't want him to be my Robert De Niro. Well, what ended up happening was they had Tom Selleck cast as Indiana Jones, who obviously that is Magnum PI. He had a TV show.
Best mustache ever.
Right. And then apparently they had like full blown like like makeup tests and like filming tests for it. But because of scheduling conflicts, he wasn't able to film. So that's when they inevitably brought in Harrison Ford against George Lucas's wish. And the rest is
Well, you know how Harrison Ford got started with even the Star Wars franchise, right?
no, I don't think I do.
He was a carpenter on set.
Was he
That's
really?
actually cool.
That's how he got started in the business. He was a carpenter for sets, and then he ended up trying out. I don't know how. Somebody will probably end up correcting me in the comments if I'm wrong. If you have anybody that actually watches this, but somehow or another, he ended up trying out for the position of Han Solo.
That's cool.
That's very interesting. And my favorite thing about Harrison Ford will forever be he just hates Star Wars
He does.
so much.
But Mark Hamill does too. Like if you watch interviews where Mark Hamill is talking about the new movies, he's always ragging on them.
Oh, well, but I think it's so interesting. Like Mark Hamill, like, yeah, you can definitely tell he did not like the way it went.
Yeah.
But Harrison Ford, he's just like, you ask him like back in the day, who shot first, Han or Greedo? He'd be like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Who cares? It's just so funny. There's something about him and then like, as I was telling him last time, it was just like, he had a standing ovation at the Cannes Festival for Indy, and he's like tearing up and stuff. And I'm just like, how does this guy care so much about Indiana Jones?
Yeah.
And
he hates
so fucking little about Han Solo, the character that basically
created his
his
Yeah.
career. So, I don't know. There's just something to that makes me laugh. Internally, of course, it's not out loud. But, yeah, that's episode 18 of Popcorner. We have rambled. We have brambled.
Gang.
I don't know what that means. I just rhymed.
You just added a B in front of it and called
He
it.
called it a day. He's like, I rhymed.
It's like modern Eminem, though. It's fine. We're cool.
Yep.
I've angered enough people. Thank you for watching. These are my gold shorts.
See you never. I'll be back in September.
Yeah.